Hey Reagan, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Thanks for
Thanks
coming
for
on.
the, yeah, no problem. No problem.
So I
Thanks
I
for
start
asking.
out, I start out with I'm starting to start out with this question. You're the first one actually. I want to know what your relationship with Vietnam is. Have you been back? Have you you know were you born there? All of those things. I want to know what your emotional relationship with
Yeah.
the country of Vietnam.
Well, yeah. Well, of course, I mean, I've been back. So on my father's, pretty much everyone is here, but on my mother's side, she still has like two sisters and two brothers there. So first time I visited was 13 years old, and of course, it was awesome. I mean, just seeing how another side of the world lived, and they still lived on the river. Actually, they still live close to the river today, and they still plant on the rice fields. So my mom bought them some rice fields, and they work it. But Vietnam's beautiful. And then fast forward, the last time I went there was maybe 5 years ago, and things changed
Right.
a lot, a lot. I mean, Ho Chi Minh City is super modern.
Yeah.
It's fun. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I like to party when I go there. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Besides seeing my cousins, I have some uncles that live in Ho Chi Minh, so they take me out.
You were
But
born in the States, right?
yes, I was born in Houston. So born in Houston, but even growing up here in America, when we were younger, my parents didn't speak English that well. So it's kind of like growing up in two worlds is what it felt like. So even though we're in America, I think Vietnam was always there. My mom, parents, even before we ever visited Vietnam, my parents would always talk about Vietnam. So it was always kind of in the background.
Do you have this problem where you don't feel fully Vietnamese or you don't feel fully American? You're kind of drifting somewhere in between, or do you feel more American? Like, what do you
I
identify?
I do. I mean, I did more so when I was younger. I think I was more worried about that when I was younger. But as I grow older, I think it's just I felt it's more common and acceptable just to be Asian American or Vietnamese American instead of trying to have to feel like you need to choose a side. Are you Vietnamese or are you American? I mean, you can be both. So I guess it's how I feel. But definitely when I was younger, I being a minority, and also I went to ESL, so my English wasn't that great, I guess, in elementary. So they sent me to ESL, which is like an English class. But yeah, I mean, good thing about Houston is there's a big Vietnamese or Chinatown. So that, I guess, that helps. I mean, I've been to some cities where Vietnamese people are born and raised with like one or two Asian restaurants. So it could be a lot worse. I mean, it wasn't so bad for me.
Do you feel like your siblings, your older siblings, might have a more of an American sort of like identity thing more than you? Because I've noticed that the younger generation, I'm 45, but the younger generation, if you're 30 or if you're 28, 35, sometimes you escape that sort of like that identity thing about trying to be American.
Yeah,
Too.
I
Is
don't know. I mean, we're born here, we're raised here. I don't think we were that stressed out about it. And also my parents are pretty westernized compared to a lot of Vietnamese parents. I speak English to my parents. I speak Vietnamese and English, but I can speak English to them all day long. I mean, they'll reply in Vietnamese, but my dad will reply in English. So we're pretty westernized for a Vietnamese family, I like to think. And my dad, he does business with a lot of American businessmen. So he actually doesn't do that much business with Vietnamese people. He prefers not to. So
Yeah. Do you
so
feel like when you communicate with your parents, they fully get everything you say?
for sure, for sure, they understand what we're saying. Whether they want to acknowledge it or not is another story.
Yeah.
My dad is very can be very stoic, and but he's a smart guy. I think he understands what's going on. Whether he expresses it or not, that's another story.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like
Yeah.
you can articulate your thoughts entirely? If you were like, if you're talking to me, do you think you can fully articulate your thoughts to him?
Yeah, for sure. He's very he understands me, and me and him understand each other. We're very similar in a lot of ways, but that's why I can kind of talk to him. I mean, kind of like you saw on the show. I mean, I defend my sister, try to do it respectfully, but I kind of understand my dad, and he understands me. So
What
yeah,
what about your relationship with your mom? Is the same
my
thing?
mom's cool. I'm like a mama's boy. I mean, we shared the same birthday actually.
Wow.
May 30th, which I didn't believe. They would always tell me that, and I never believed it. I thought like, it was just some funny business with, the immigration papers or whatever. Is what I used to think. And then, then one day my dad just pulled out a bunch of like papers that were from the day before I was born, like their marriage licenses and everything. And it was the same birthday. And I was like, holy crap.
That's trippy.
I thought,
Why would you think that they were just pulling your leg?
I don't know. I really don't know, because it's just a rare occurrence, like, oh, y'all, that really is her birthday. And then I also had heard of news, like my uncles and aunts, they're like, when you ask them, how old are you? They'll be like, on paper, I'm 46, but in real life, I'm like 47. Because they always, when the immigration papers happen, they change their age a little bit.
Funny
So
business.
yeah. So they always shaved off a year or two, right?
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
That's
So then, so then that's why I thought, my parents were just kind of joking or pulling my leg about it. But turns out it's true. We do have the same birthday, May 30th.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have to be her favorite then. You're the baby.
Favorite.
You're on the same day.
I mean, I don't think they really have favorites, but my mom, I'm a mix of between my mom and dad. I have my mom is super sweet, super soft, and very loving. And then my dad's like the total opposite. So I guess that's why they work. I mean, they're like, opposites attract. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even like my mom was telling me I love you ever since I was a kid. Like my dad had never said it until after I was in college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
And now he can say it. I think as he's gotten older, he's chilled out a bit, and I say it to him. But of course, I say that to my dad. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Now I do. Now I do. But that didn't even happen until like after college, maybe.
Wait, do the other two say it too, or
yeah,
you're the youngest one, and you're probably a little bit more malleable, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, we say it. We say it now, and it's not like I say it every day, but every once in a while I'll text it to him, or like Christmas, like Merry Christmas, I love you, or Happy Birthday, I love you.
Man, that is such a gift, because there's a book actually written by Laksu, white I love yous are for white people, and it's a whole
really?
about that. Yeah. It's a gift for us to be able to, I think, live in both the Vietnamese culture and the American culture, where you can freely communicate I love you and then feel it.
Right.
There's another writer named Ocean Vuong, and he describes the idea of love in Vietnamese as more physical, it's touching. Our moms stroke.
Yeah. Yes, that is very true. Actually, somebody just recommended me his book recently. I haven't read it yet. It's beautiful. But the On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Somebody recommended me. So with my dad, the verbal I love you wasn't there until later on in life. And I think growing up, that was tough, but it just took, for me to realize and just to see the action of what he did. So he's out working till like 8 p.m. every night. He would come home. At the time, my dad owned convenience stores when I was growing up. He would come home, me and my brother and sister would help him. We had a bunch of inventory in the garage. We'd help, do the inventory. He'd come home with big bags of coins. Yeah. Me and my brother and sister would sit there until sometimes it was like 2 a.m. rolling coins. Because, at that time, there were no coin rolling machines. we did it all by hand. So we did it as a family, and you know, he provided for us. But so it was a different kind of I love you, I guess.
Right, right.
And it wasn't, yeah,
You
it
know,
wasn't until later on that we actually verbalized it.
this is all about really about you, but I do want to know about your family and your dad, you know, and I want to hear, you know, how they got started, but maybe we can get into that in a little bit. Hopefully we return back to that.
Yeah, whichever.
Where did you go to school?
Went to, oh, that's an interesting story, but okay. So, I mean, so my parents started making money kind of as we were growing up. So yeah, we started in public school. I was in the public school district called Aldine here in Houston.
Mhm.
It's a very, it wasn't the greatest school district, you know, a lot of crime in the area.
Yeah.
That's where we grew up, in the Aldine district. And then fast forward and so like in that school, I was like, it might have been, you know, 50% minorities, like Black and Mexican,
Yeah.
you know, 40 white or whatever, 5% Indian, Asian. So, you know, I was a minority in that school. And then 6th grade, I believe, my dad sends us to private school. So I go from that environment to, you know, 98% well-to-do Caucasians. And so it was a shock for me.
Wow.
But yeah, so either way, I was like a minority on both sides, but it was just.
Wait, what was going on through your mind in 6th grade when you go from that transition? Because this was a sudden transition, right?
Yeah, it was crazy because like in the public school, of course, we're like, you know, the model minority Asian student that makes good grades. And I go to the private school. I mean, I still made good grades always, but they viewed us a little bit differently, you know, because they do ask, oh, where you're the new kid in school, where did you come from, yada yada yada, and I tell them, oh, I came from this school in the Aldine district, and they're just like, wow, like Aldine, like really, because you know that's a known district. So it goes from, you know, being the model minority to like, oh my God, this kid's kind of ghetto, or this kid's from the ghetto.
But then what about you get street cred, or
you do.
No,
it wasn't. No. For the most part, I made good friends there, and I still keep in touch with some of them today. But you do get a little street cred. It's fake street cred. But of course we played it up. I mean, yeah, I'm from that district. It's not like we were ghetto or anything. We just lived there. But it was fun. And that school was Second Baptist here in Houston. So we go from that school to a Baptist school.
Would you say Second Baptist?
Second Baptist.
What does that mean? Yeah.
That's the name of the private school.
Oh, got it.
That I went to. I eventually got kicked out of there, but
I want to hear about that. Like for fighting, or for I mean, you probably got good grades, but for fighting?
Yeah, for disciplinary issues. But that wasn't until 10th grade, and so that was like 5-6 years later. But yeah, I mean, my grades were always good. It was just I don't know. I guess I got bored easily. Was screwing around. But yeah.
At what age did you kind of like click in your mind, like, okay, financially we're in a different category now? Did that ever occur, or was it a slow transition?
It was when we started going to private school, for sure, right around that time, because we just realized, you know, my dad started buying nicer cars. You know, we bought a Mercedes and the Jaguar. Then we went to like private school, and then I started realizing, okay, so things are changing a little bit. But of course, at that time, I mean, at least I didn't really understand money that well. I just thought, you know, my dad wants us to go to a better school.
Right. So you weren't processing it differently. As somebody in their 20s would be like, wait a minute, this is, you know,
right.
Universe, right? It wasn't like that for you.
Yeah, my dad would always stress education. He's like, so the reason why I want you guys to go to this new school is because it's better for you education wise. You're gonna have a better opportunity to get into better colleges for your future. So that was always my dad's stressing, that the education side is my dad's, number one thing.
So where'd you end up going to college?
So I went to NYU. I ended up going to NYU when I was 18. Got tired. Well, we went on vacation in New York City once or twice, and I was like, man, I love New York. And I'm just going to do whatever I can to get there. And so I ended up getting into NYU. I didn't get into Stern because I guess my grades weren't good enough. For the Stern is the famous business school there.
Right.
So anyway, but I still got in, and then I ended up studying the hospitality business. So at that time, they didn't have a hotel school, but they had the restaurant side.
Yeah.
Which is my love. So I love food, I love restaurants, I love eating, I love cooking, and that's what I wanted to focus on. And also my family background is also in the hotel business. So it kind of coincided with it. Of course, my dad wanted me to try to get into Stern, the business school, but I stayed on the hospitality side. Yeah, so that's what I studied.
Looking back on it, I mean, now that you know a little bit more about life and what education does for us, do you think that going to Stern might have been a different thing?
Yeah, my dad. I'm not afraid to say my dad was probably correct. My dad was correct.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in hindsight, I think I should have done it for sure.
Okay,
sure.
Why? Why do you?
Well, I mean, studying business kind of applies to everything. I know that. I mean, everyone says that, but it really does. You can apply that to anything. And not only that, NYU is a great school, but the Stern school within NYU is even better.
Got it.
So yeah.
I have this.
I'm still doing okay, and I still am, involved in a lot of different businesses. So it hasn't held me back much, in my opinion. But of course, it could have been better. So
yeah. I have this discussion with my brother too. He's also a business person. He's getting his MBA right now, and we talk about that. And I talk to other friends about whether going to school, getting our education in the field that we're supposed to go into is more important, or some peripheral thing that's like, if you go into film, then you might want to go into anthropology, or you want to English, or even communication, instead of actually the film. Same, I think, with business sometimes is, if you go into business, going to business school might, I don't know, sometimes I feel like it might impair you from being more creative and stepping, back and,
I mean, I could see both arguments, but I understand what you're saying. See, business for me, because I was lucky enough to come from, my background, and I always had an idea in my mind, I figured these guys that were going to business school, they want to go work, in a corporate job, 9 to 5, punch in and work for the big man, which is not what I ever wanted to do. So right. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur because I come from an entrepreneurial family, and I always kind of wanted to do my own thing. And I knew I had connections here and there through my family and through my, high school friends, where I knew I could raise money to do certain different businesses. And at that time, I was really focused on bars and restaurants. So that's why I chose that route. But, it worked out for me. I don't know. It's different for everybody.
Like, your father didn't go to business school, did he?
No, my dad went to the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah. And so many of those guys in that generation kill it. And then, you get your MBA guys that go work for people like your dad.
Yeah. Because they, they went to the School of Hard Knocks. They had to leave their country. They had forced out of their country at 30, whatever years old. Yeah. Couldn't even speak the language. My dad's first job actually was to pump gas at a gas station here in Houston.
Mind blowing.
Yeah. And then after that, he fixed TVs. So he still knows how to fix the old school TVs. He doesn't know how to fix the flat screens, but But yeah, he did that, and then he sold insurance door to door, life insurance door to door,
For how long?
and for a few years. But he has like 50 trophies in his house that says salesman of the year and sales team of the year. And he's like, Reagan, imagine going door to door. I couldn't even speak English. And I'm trying to, he's like, my district was the ghetto. So how can you convince, people with barely any extra income to buy life insurance, because they're just trying to buy food for their kids. He's like, how can you convince them to buy life insurance when they can barely feed their family? And he was able to do that. So that's, my inspiration really.
What do you think drives your dad from your perspective?
I mean, his love for his family, is what I believe. Like I know just from stories from other people and my uncles and aunts and things, my family, when they were in Vietnam before the war, they were well-to-do already. And my dad was a playboy, and that's what he was known as. And there's pictures of him from back in the day, where in his like 3-piece suits and stuff in Vietnam, growing up in Vietnam. So I think he was always had a taste of that life. And then when he came to America with $0 in his pocket, of course he knew he had to hustle to get back to where they were, I guess. And he is the oldest of 11 kids.
Oh, there you go.
11 surviving kids. They had like 16 or 17 siblings. And so my dad was the oldest, and once he got here, he was basically thinking like, that playboy, whatever life is over. He's like, it's time to hustle. And so he did.
Stepped the fuck up.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't have a choice, really. I mean, a lot of our parents didn't when they got here.
Yeah.
They just had to find a way.
And how much of that success do you think is luck from your perspective?
Of course, some of it is luck. I'm not going to lie. Some of it's timing. For instance, okay, so the luck, or I don't know if it was luck or timing. One of those Malcolm Gladwell books talks about, being in the right place at the right time. I forget which one. Yeah. Okay. So at the time, my dad, fast forward, my mom was working at a Circle K convenience store, gas station. And then the owner of that.
Your mom was
my
working? My
mom.
Wow.
Yeah. My mom. So my dad, yes. Yeah. At the register. So my dad was like selling the life insurance door to door. And then my mom was working at the Circle K. And the owner of that Circle K was deciding to retire and wanted to sell the store. And so my mom convinced them, because she said, I've been managing the store for you anyway for the past, 2 or 3 years. He's like, why don't you finance it for me and help me out and sell it to me? And so he decided to sell it to my parents. And then they started with that one store. So that's a little bit of luck and timing. The owner was retiring, and he decided to help them out in financing it for them. And they ended up with like 25 convenience stores eventually.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And so that's when they really started, to build the wealth. So they went from there. And then, from the 25 convenience stores, fast forward again to like, there's the saving and loans crisis, the banking crisis in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so a lot of retail centers owners were going bankrupt. And at that time, through the convenience stores, we had a lot of cash, and that, cash is king always. And so as a lot of these retail centers are going bankrupt and the banks are taking them back and they're selling it for, pennies on the dollar, is when my dad started buying retail centers. So that's another kind of timing deal where, the crisis presented an opportunity for him. So I don't know if you call it luck, but it is kind of being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I hear the story, and I'm thinking that whole convenience store with the decision from your mother to ask the owner to finance. I mean, that's so pivotal.
Yeah.
that point in your family's history is so pivotal, because from there it goes to 25 convenience stores, and then you can leverage off and do all the other stuff in the crowd
Right.
SNL
And
logo.
as they're buying more convenience stores, they keep sponsoring more family members from Vietnam. So
Plug and play.
and it's all Vietnamese people running these
Yep.
stores. It's cousins or cousins of cousins or friends of cousins that they're sponsoring, bringing over, helping out. And so, our family has a huge network here in Houston because of that. And, my father, he's pretty well known. I mean, if you ask him, anyone in the Vietnamese community, not just because he has money, but because he helped out a lot of families
Right.
here. And so, yeah, it did. Not only did they make some money, they helped out a lot of families.
Yeah, that idea of reciprocation from your father. But being the head of 11 or 16 kids, that's like being a parent in itself.
Right.
So that practice of taking care of the younger siblings, I mean, that's taking care of the three of you. It is probably
Yeah.
Valley.
Yeah, he's chilled out now, but growing up, he was a drill sergeant. You know what I mean? I mean, he's managing all these employees, and plus he's managing us three. But so sometimes there's some tough love there, but
Yeah.
but it was
There
love.
should be. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but it was what it was.
So when you're at NYU and you're studying hospitality, what did you like? I don't know much about a hospitality program, but what do you learn in a hospitality?
It's it
Is
was
it
kind of a
numbers?
cop out. I mean, I kind of chose an easy major. I'll tell you what, I learned a lot more just living in New York City from the bar and restaurant business perspective, like seeing all the new concepts in Manhattan that would pop up every week, seeing how these guys at the time that were running the hot nightclub at the time was called Lotus. I think those guys kind of pioneered the table service. Like, if you want that table, it's $2,000.
Yeah.
Before that, I had never seen that, and this was before Vegas was doing it.
Right.
Yeah, I was partying a lot. Not gonna lie, I was
Mhm.
going out a lot, and I just learned from that. Like, these guys are selling these tables like real estate. If you want the best table in the house, it's $5,000 or whatever it was. So from a business standpoint, as far as bars and restaurants, I learned a lot from just being in New York City, where New York City, if you've been there, I mean, sure you have, but it's like the big leagues of bars and restaurants.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's only the best of the best operators can survive there. So the guys that do well, they do very well. And then, so I learned a lot from there. School was easy for me. I kind of just like procrastinated and still made good grades. So I was, I was a little rebellious, obviously, from what my dad wanted, which is go study finance, go study economics. And I'm like, well, I'm already at a good school. Like, why should I? So it's kind of like a halfway rebellion. Like, I'm already in a good school, but I'm not going to do 100% of what you asked for. I've done, a lot of what you asked for. So it's slight rebellion, I guess. At the time, I didn't realize that. Now I do. But at the time, it was just like, well, I'm going to do what I want to do, Dad. Yada yada yada, and argue with him. But yeah. So it's me rebelling a little bit, and also having fun in New York City.
Yeah. But their hospitality program, did they go over numbers and stuff, or was it more?
Yeah. It's like coming up with restaurant concepts and pitching restaurant deals, coming up with menu ideas, doing costing, things like that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. It's just everything you need to know to start a restaurant or any business for that matter. Yeah.
I've owned two of them, two restaurants, and they're a pain in the butt.
Yes, they can be.
Yeah. A lot of work.
I've partnered in several, and after working in a few, I'm like, I'd rather be on the silent partner side, and let you partner with a strong operator and let the operator do the work.
Somebody who really
it's a labor of love. I mean, you have to love that business to really succeed at it, in my opinion,
Yeah.
as an operator.
What did you look for? What do you look for? I don't know if you're still in that space, but what do you look for when you're sitting down with partners, potential partners that you're getting into business with? What do you look for in the operators?
Well, now, I mean, I've gotten burned a couple of times. I'll be honest with you. And in the past, investing with what I thought were my friends, or that are now ex-friends, I would say. You know, just kind of believing them because they're your friend is a big mistake. And like also what they say is if you want to keep your friends, don't ever do business with your friends, which is I would say it's a probably true, you know, saying. Because when things are good, but when things are bad, when the shit hits the fan, and then there's a bunch of blaming going around and things like that. But I would say a strong proven operator with a lot of experience, and not only that, but someone who's open-minded, you know what I mean? Because you do have some good operators who are closed-minded, who will never, because they were successful on 2 or 3 other projects, this doesn't mean they're going to be successful on the next project. And if they're not open-minded to either changing or hearing criticism or hearing another way, then they're very hard to work with.
That's a good
So
point.
yes, but I kind of learned that the hard way.
It's not an easy business, and but you know that experience within the hospitality, I think it translates to a lot of facets of other businesses that whether you go into construction or you know any other realm.
It's a people business.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're only as good as your staff. I mean, even now, I manage. I'm partners in some restaurants silently, but I manage hotels hands on. So
oh
we
wow.
have a couple. Yeah, we have a couple hotels that we're partners in here in Texas and Louisiana. So
You
that
you ever look at potential Vietnam properties for hotels?
their real estate valuations are kind of off
Yeah,
there compared to the revenue of the hotel. So that's one of the weird things. I mean, land is so expensive there,
yeah,
and depending on your hotel may not even generate
out of control.
barely. Yeah, it doesn't generate that much cash. But
It's almost like you have to own the property, you know, through
right,
generations or whatever, and
right,
you put down that structure as a way for your family to make money, but it's not really, you can't really go into it and go to get a bank loan and, you know,
no,
do the comps and, you know, it doesn't
not
work like
yeah, yeah, not with the numbers they generate for the most part. No,
no. Yeah.
yeah,
This is, you know, maybe old money that
yeah,
trickled down.
something like that.
Yeah. That's what I've known. So do you cook and do you
Oh yeah,
the
I
kitchen
love
and get
cooking.
down?
I love cooking. I cook all the time. I hate
What do you
cleaning. Cleaning's the worst part.
what do
I
you
mean,
cook?
well, I mean, now that I'm single, I cook less because it's just easier to order. But when I do cook, man, anything, whatever I feel like, from Vietnamese to French food to Italian to American, whatever. But yeah,
Kind of Vietnamese food you cook?
um, gun or tit call, whatever. But really, for the most part, Vietnamese. My mom lives like 3 miles away, so
Yeah.
if I really want good Vietnamese, I just go there. But sometimes I'll cook Vietnamese for like friends that come over if that's what they want. But more so, I would say French or American food.
You ever think of doing that as a profession?
Cooking,
Yeah.
I cooked for a bit for like 2 years, man.
Like
That shit's fuck. That
in
shit's fucking hard work.
in a
Yeah.
professional kitchen?
Yes. So I didn't go to culinary school, but
Yeah.
after college, I wanted to get my hands dirty a little bit to learn a little bit extra and just to put, some real work in. And then I came here to Houston, and then I cooked at this place called the Rainbow Lodge, which is still open today. It's kind of like a steakhouse, but they specialize in wild game. So I worked there for like a year, and then And then after that, I worked at this other restaurant, this super high-end fine dining restaurant called Trinity, which is like French food. And they ended up closing down, but I was there for like a year as well, which
Whatever
really opened my eyes. Yeah.
whatever perceptions anybody has of you from the show, they can go fuck themselves because, and I'll tell you why. Eh, To work in any kitchen
Yeah.
for a few weeks is taxing. So if they
Yes.
think you're some, privileged or
Right.
whatever, it's for 2 years to grind it out.
Right.
That's no joke. That
And
shows a lot of,
especially like, right. And especially those kitchens, those kids, I mean, they were all great cooks and they all went to
yeah.
culinary school and I didn't. So I was still kind of learning on the job some things, you know what I mean?
And
So,
and
yeah.
hearing that now kind of explains why I feel like when I've watched you on the show, there's a sense of, for me, you're very grounded. You,
Okay.
you feel very grounded to me. And now it's beginning to come out like that. That's some real shit to work in a kitchen for,
Right.
I mean, it's like a bullets flying in there. It's a war. It's a war.
Yeah,
Been in
for
that business
sure.
for 10 years, and I feed my family in that business. And, I got 30 guys sometimes out in the field with me. And
Right.
it is no different than being in the military, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. When the rush hour hits, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It gets a
Yeah.
little crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a good feeling though, too. You feel very connected to humanity.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. I liked it. It was fun. But I did it enough to know that I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
If
Absolutely.
that makes sense.
I still love it. I still love getting in the kitchen
Me too. I
playing
mean,
chef. Yeah.
I love cooking. I mean, I love cooking for
Yeah.
sure.
But not for for professionally. It's, you got to really be invested.
Right. And I feel like for people, and for like you asked me what I look for in business partners, like even for the restaurant business, I used to think it's a food business or whatever. Okay, it's a food business, but the real money's in the alcohol.
Yeah.
So if you, I tell potential people, like, don't ever look at a restaurant as
You
a
don't have that
restaurant
much. Yeah.
as a restaurant that serves alcohol. I said try to think of it as a bar that has food, and really push the alcohol. That's another thing I learned in New York, because New York is all about the alcohol. The second you walk in the door, they're pushing alcohol, because that's where the
Margins
big market.
are, yeah.
Yeah.
Huge margins there.
Yeah.
A bottle of like Grey Goose, $35. I mean, how much
Yeah.
are you flipping that for? It's insane.
Right. For sure.
Insane.
Bars do well for sure.
Yeah. Can you imagine all the bars that are hurting from COVID now, man?
I know they just announced here in Texas we may be getting shut. The bars are going to get shut down again soon. So
I'd love to talk about that right now. We here in LA are having, there's nothing going on. There's no bars, no restaurants, nothing.
yeah,
But then in
and yeah,
Boston and Houston, and I hear, it's like people are actually living. How is that possible?
yeah. I don't know. I've been very careful. I've been, knock on wood, I haven't gotten, I'm careful when I go out. If I do go out lately, it's like patio bars, like outdoor bars.
Yeah.
I'll go have a beer or two with friends out on a patio somewhere. And then food wise, I do go out to eat here and there. I mean, a majority of time I'm ordering food at home, but I mean, I know a lot of restaurant owners here that are hurting, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
So
horrible, man.
it's the balance between trying to help the local mom and pop shops, but at the same time trying to stay safe. It's a shitty situation, and I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's a sad situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Even for us, I mean, my businesses, the hotel stuff is off like 50% from last year, and it's terrible. It's tough. So, but I mean, I'm still fortunate. So.
Yeah.
So you've been cooped up. I mean, LA's been shut down. The crazy thing is LA's been shut down, but the numbers, the hospital numbers.
Yeah. I don't get it. I don't pay attention to it as much as I should.
Right. It's stressful, right?
Stressful. I lost the whole year. My wife and I, we were in the restaurant not in the restaurant business. We're in the food space. We're outdoor festival. That's one of my businesses that I have.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
So there's all the festival. Those
done.
were your, yeah.
Toast. Yeah, she hasn't been at her job all year. I haven't been working with my crew all year. Thank
Yeah.
God I have two other things that have sustained us, but it's a tricky journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to switch over to hunting because I know that
Sure.
that's something that you do, and
Yeah.
I know like a lot of people that don't know about hunting because traditionally Vietnamese people are not known for hunting, right? We're more. I mean, the people that I know are all city
Yeah.
people.
Depends. Yeah.
Tell,
Depends on who you ask.
sure. Tell me about how you guys got into that and how often and what do you hunt and tell me about that life.
Sure. Sure. We've been doing it since before I can remember. So I think who got my father into it was his attorney or some other old American businessman that used to take us every year. That kind of introduced my dad to it, and then my dad would take my brother and I every year from like probably started when I was like 7 years old. So as from when I could pick up a gun, he taught me how to shoot. And also all my uncles would come as well. So it was like an annual
Mhm.
thing for deer hunting. So we do an annual thing. And my grandfather, who's passed away now, but he would come as well. And that was his favorite. That was kind of his favorite thing to do, my grandfather. And
Wow,
so it was like an annual boys trip for us.
that sounds like fun.
Yeah. So,
And you guys would like dress the deer and like
oh
everything.
yeah, we clean it, dress it, butcher it, we do everything. And that was actually mine and Washington's job was cleaning deer because we were the youngest. And once we were old enough, once when I was like, by the time I was 14, 13, 14, I was doing it. Me, Washington and I were kind of doing it ourselves as the adults were like drinking beer. But we loved it. It wasn't a job. It was like the annual boys trip that we would do with our dad and our uncles and our grandfather.
There's so much politicization around hunting and killing animals.
Yeah,
And I get
I
it.
get it.
I
I
get
get
it.
it. Well, and a lot of people don't understand. I mean, we don't just hunt for fun. I mean, we actually eat everything. If we're
Yeah.
going to shoot it, we eat it first off. And I know a lot of people are going to politicize that as well. But it's the way humans lived for
Yeah. For
thousands,
millennia.
millions of years.
I
So
remember, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, so it's not just that aspect, but for me, even to this day, I still love to do it with my dad because it's just like an annual, tradition for us. And like it kind of ties back to the way, being close with my dad. Other when we're not hunting, it's like a lot of times when we're talking, it's a lot of times it's business. Like we're talking business, and it's almost can be a business relationship between my father and I a lot of times. But when we're hunting, there is no business. It's just father, son, how'd you do? What did you see? Did you shoot anything? Or and so it's kind of a break from the business side of things for me. Yeah.
When I was a kid, we raised chickens and there was a lot of them. We had 50 of them and we throw in ducks and I remember we would go back and we would grab them and we'd have to in Vietnamese is lam long. You take the
Yes.
we we had ducks and I remember that we had 4 ducks compared to 50 chickens and so at some point the little baby ducks were ready to be taken in and
Yeah.
so my mom showed me how to nhặt cái lông right here, right? Take this off and
Yeah.
take a knife, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
you drain it for a specific dish, tikan. And I learned
Yes. I love that.
7 years old to do it from start to finish. And there's something valuable about that, something really valuable. It's like planting, being able to plant vegetables,
Yeah.
being able to go and
Right.
vegetables out. And all of that is being lost with the youth of just modern world today. I
I
don't
agree.
know. I don't. I'm still trying to make sense of it all because we grew up understanding a certain way, you and me, of
Right,
actually killing an animal to eat.
right,
It's all
right.
gone. It's all,
It
not.
is. It is. And they now they just go to the grocery store, which I do too. But for me, I like to get into nature, especially when haven't done it. And like if you see on my Instagram, I know you're not on Instagram, but I go fishing often, at least once or twice a month, at least, if not more, depending on the season. In the summer, I go more often. I have a good buddy of mine here. He owns, a nice boat, so he invites me out whenever he goes. But it's just to get back to nature. I think sometimes you're stuck in the city for too long. Like
Yeah.
Texas is already wide open, but in a city like New York City, where it's super congested, you're living in the concrete jungle. Sometimes you need to get back to nature. Sometimes you just need to step away and take a breath.
And we
And
need that. We
yeah,
After this
just
pandemic.
like you saying you go hiking every morning. You know what I mean? So it's kind of to like decompress and get
Yeah.
away and just get back to nature. So that helps me.
I've noticed myself being 100% more happier when I started, without this pandemic, I don't think I would have been hiking every day.
Yeah, yeah.
But now that I'm returning to nature and being in it daily, it's just made my life a lot. I'm able to focus more. I'm able to
Right,
pay attention
right.
to my children, my wife more.
Right. I mean, that's the same with me. It's, we have all these stresses. We wake up in the morning, every morning we wake up, you got to check emails, you got to
Yeah.
reply to emails, you got to do, check on employees or reports. And when you're out in nature, that's gone. So for me, it's to relax and to get away. Yeah.
Well, I hope one day I can come join you
For sure.
trip. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Anytime.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I
Anytime.
haven't shot a gun in a long time, but
Wow. I got a lot of them. So yeah, whenever you're ready, let's do it.
yeah. Um, you talked about investments and stuff like that. Right now, Bitcoin is super hot. Are you into that?
Yes, we do have some investments. I used to try to trade it myself, but the fluctuations and reading all the
Sure.
news, trying to filter out the real from the fake news on Twitter or CoinDesk on all these other crypto websites. You don't know what's real and what's bullshit and who's pumping up what. You know what I mean? Because it's unregulated. Anybody can say whatever the hell they want to say. And it was okay for me, but then finally I met of a guy through a friend of a friend, and he has a fund that does it, trades and mines. So we ended up investing a little bit of money with him, and we let them handle it now. So yeah, that as far as Bitcoin, that's my exposure now. In the future, I think it's here to stay. To be honest, I don't know which coins will be the best. Nobody knows really. But now that you see the big companies like PayPal and who Goldman Sachs and they're all getting in it. I
Yeah.
mean, if the big guys are getting in it, then it's not going anywhere, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, I was in it in 2017, but sometimes when I think about how much fiat money, like money that cash, like the Vietnamese way of life, or
Right.
the cash way of life, we go under the radar. Where the control of society, it's like it's non-existent when you're in cash, right? But then now
Yeah.
going to digital, and how much of the world is changing that we can't even really fathom, going forward. um
Right. It's like I read or I saw a tweet recently. It's like people going to crypto is leaving. Well, the theme was, I think, is people leaving institutions, right? And then so crypto is leaving the institution of centralized, government money, or social media is people leaving the institution of the old newspaper. For instance, and now social media is more important than newspapers. But yeah, crypto is a part of that for
Things
sure.
are changing so much. You guys are in banking, right? Is that your
Yes, that's eventually my dad did get into banking, and he started a bank with some business partners. It's a community bank, Southwestern National Bank. So him and some Taiwanese partners started that. He was the only Vietnamese founder, and yeah, it's still going today. And there, I think they just opened a branch in California, somewhere in Orange County. So it's expanding. Yeah.
after talking to you this morning and watching the show, you're very different from, your family, or it just seems that way. What do you think why do you think you turned out a little bit different than what's being
I'm
portrayed?
a I'm a like, I mean, we're similar in a lot of ways, but yes, we are very different in a lot of ways. I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. Um, I was just, I don't know. I guess I just see things differently. Some things, but we are aligned on a lot of things.
I'll tell you how I
Um,
see it, where I see the difference. You're the
yeah,
guy who don't give a fuck, and I'm just gonna say it. You just don't care. You're like, I'm gonna voice how I feel about what I feel right now, and that takes
right,
a lot of balls to stand up to Vietnamese parents, or you're the
right,
youngest in that whole
right,
system. You're the
right, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it took a while. Like I wasn't always, I mean, I always had my own opinions. That's, but when you're young, it's called home.
Yeah.
You're like talking back, right?
Yeah.
But really, it's just, well, I just have a different opinion. Sorry, it's not. I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
But they respect that about you too. You could see it in the show. Like people kind of
Yeah, but
hear
not when
it.
I was younger. When I was
Yeah, it's like,
younger, it's like I would get my ass kicked for it. But
ironically, you're the youngest one, but like the most quiet, but with the loudest kind of feel. Like you can feel it. Like
yeah, I tend to be observant, and people mistake my quietness for me being aloof. I've been told, like, people think I'm kind of aloof sometimes, but it's just, I don't know. I'm just observant, and I tend to think things through pretty quickly, and then I get bored and move on, which I think is why people think I'm aloof. But as far as speaking my mind, of course, I was definitely afraid of my dad growing up, so it wasn't always that way.
hmm.
I do, and when you say don't give a fuck, of course, I do give a fuck, but I just will, if I feel something's not right, I'll challenge it. I try to do it respectfully. Um, but I don't know. We're all raised in the same household, and so my brother, maybe seeing the way my brother is, made me want to be the opposite. Like we're very different in a lot of ways.
If nobody
Um,
told me about the birth order, I have a lot of commentary. If I just watching and nobody knew, you're like the
yeah,
oldest. You feel like the oldest guy in that family, the oldest.
if I had a
Weirdest
dollar
thing,
for,
man.
everybody says that about us. So I don't know. I don't know. I just had a different group of friends growing up too that probably had an effect on me. Like a lot of my friends at the Second Baptist School, for instance,
Hmm.
were the rowdy kids and kind of the punk rock kids that that would challenge authority, and some of that rubbed off on me. And also living in New York, some of my roommates were that way too. I lived in dorms. I
That is
lived in dorms for the first 2 years. And so, a lot of the NYU kids are very, I guess you could say, counterculture,
yeah.
or against the man. And so some of that rubbed off in a way, and just to make me kind of learn how to speak my mind whenever I feel it's necessary. Because, at the end of the day, I learned you just have to be true to yourself. You have to speak up for yourself, and no one's going to speak up for you. And if you don't speak up for yourself, nobody else will. And then you feel like you may get stuck. Like, for instance, in my sister's situation on this show, covering her divorce. My sister's always been she was by the book,
Yeah.
doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, didn't party, stayed in, studied, very smart, straight A's, 4.0. became an attorney. She went to law school. She ended up going to law school at BU. And, she was by the book, um, and she sometimes she is afraid to speak up, or just may feel it's disrespectful. So in that instance, I feel like I have to speak for my sister, knowing that being empathetic enough to understand both how she feels and knowing the way my dad is. I have to kind of speak as a translator, I guess you could say, between them two, because I understand both sides.
Ironically, from the youngest boy in the family,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess plus it annoys me sometimes when, like, I know what people are trying to get at, but don't say it. I'm like, just fucking say it. Just say what you want to say.
Yeah.
Like, instead of like having all this tension and like beating around the bush, yada, 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 just fucking say it. Like, let's just get to the point.
There's so much cultural norms in the Vietnamese world when we communicate with our elders, right?
Exactly. Which I understand, but I hate it. And, American is very direct. It's very direct communication.
More efficient.
Yeah, not only that, and the American way is like, don't apologize for what you feel, right? And the Vietnamese way is like, you feel that, but you're wrong. You're wrong for feeling that. Well, shit. Well, then who's right and who's wrong? We're raised in both cultures, and I feel, I mean, both sides kind of, I guess, have a valid point, but the way I'm, the more directness, I think, in the long run is a better route, because I guess in parenting, really, the not being direct leaves questions, at least for me growing up, like what's going on here? Like for instance, earlier I said, oh, my dad never said he loved me until I was like 25 years old.
Yeah.
And then so you're thinking, as a young boy, you're like, well, does my dad love me? He's never said it before. Because like my mom will say it.
Yeah.
My dad's never said it. But in my mind, I don't understand nonverbal communication when I'm 15, 16. You know what I mean? You just think what you hear. You don't look at the nonverbal cues at that age.
Right.
And so it's like growing up thinking, well, my mom loves me, my dad must not, because my mom says it, my dad doesn't.
Wow.
But in reality, of course, my dad loves me. It's just not verbalized. So, but that has a huge effect, I think, on a young man growing up.
You mentioned Malcolm Gladwell when we first started. We talked about, I mentioned outliers. So one of the chapters in that book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, talks about that very thing. There were, in the 90s, there were all these Korean airline planes flying into mountains and bursting into flames. And it was, the percentage of problems that they were having with that airline was astronomical. It was like the ratio was way off compared to like every international flight. So they had to do a study and go, what's happening in the cockpit that's creating all this chaos? That's, 9 flights go down in, a matter of 10 years or whatever. I can't remember the statistics.
Yeah.
And then they realized that it all went back into Korean communication. So it's like, in Vietnamese, we have dạ anh or dạ em, dạ anh and dạ chú, and we have these hierarchies of communication.
Yes.
And many times the way we communicate with an older person is held back, and the truth is held back. The feelings are held back because of respect. They had to remove that shit from the cockpit of the Korean Airlines because it was creating split-second problems that would land people into the side of the mountains. And so they had to switch to English. Can you imagine?
Right.
Imagine if
that makes sense. I mean, communication is key. It is the key to everything. And took me a while to figure that out. I've been through a couple bad, or I wouldn't say bad, but relationships where I learned I wasn't communicating correctly, or my feelings, or what I wanted, or what I expected. And if you don't, then you're doomed for failure. If you can't ask or say how you feel, or ask for what you want.
The crazy thing is, even if you're well versed in this psychological sort of therapy speak, where you're able to fully communicate, even then you're having a lot of problems. You got to really even then at that level, you're still cleaning up oil spills all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
So imagine,
We're humans. That's the way we
yeah,
are, but we can only try to get better.
yeah, it's a weird dynamic. And I think people in Vietnam and I go back before the pandemic. I used to go back 3 or 4 times a year, and it seems
For
like
business,
for
you
business,
went for business. Yeah.
yeah, we our family owns a factory manufacturing textiles in Vietnam still.
Okay.
Still involved in that, and there's a level of change too that's happening that's not what we in America think of when we think of our parents' generation. There's a lot of things that are very 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 pleasant to be around. You know,
Okay.
not as
Interesting.
strict and as scary
Yeah.
as we, but it could be that whole other effect too, where like, if you haven't been to your elementary school in 20 years or whatever, you go and then all of a sudden things are like very small. It seems a lot smaller. So it's your
Yeah.
mind playing tricks on you. So when
Right.
like you think like your parents' generation was really strict, and then I
Right.
don't know, maybe it's me going back to Vietnam now and I'm like, oh, that's not as strict as I thought it was, but then it really is on the ground. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. It seems that the society seems a little more open than you
Yeah,
think it would be. At
very
least for
much.
the younger generation, for sure.
Yeah, very
For sure.
much. Very
Yeah.
much. Parents are a lot more open and loving too. It
Right.
shows, and I'm deeply touched by witnessing that. And
Right.
what do
Right.
you what do you think you would be doing if you had no family expectations? You didn't have your father. You didn't have just it was just your bare essence of you in the world, and you had to do something and you didn't have any pressure.
I mean, it would go back to what I wanted to do, like when I was in college. So even before college, I loved food. I loved cooking. I probably would have went to culinary school. I
Hmm.
had talked about going to culinary school before I got into NYU with my father. Of course, he said, "You're fucking crazy." He's like, well, "You want to do what?" He's like, "You want to cook? Are you fucking kidding me?" And of course, I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. That's a fucking stupid idea." And so, of course, I go to NYU, and then I studied the restaurant business anyway. So it's kind of like a give and take of, I'm going to do a little bit of what you want. I will go to a real university, a good one, but I'm going to study the restaurant business there and not economics. So I think in my mind, I would probably be involved in the food industry. I am now in a certain way as an investor, but I probably would have went to culinary school because that's what I really wanted to do growing up. I would watch the Food Network all day long. I would watch at that time it was like Emeril Lagasse's cooking show every day. So that was my thing growing up. So that's probably what I would have done. Also, I studied when I went to NYU. So my extracurricular classes, I studied film. So that was another interest of mine. So if I had some extra credits I needed to fill, it was film courses. Studied directors courses, a little bit of production courses here and there, which is NYU is a famous school for film. So I figured if I have to get extra credits anyway, I might as well, delve into that. So that was fun. I mean, learning about those things was pretty fun for me. I mean, either food or film probably is what I would be doing.
And the interesting thing in LA, there's so many people that, I mean, me included, I'm in food and film, and I have so
Yeah.
many friends that are in food and film. There's something
Yeah.
about food and film that go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's weird, huh? I don't know what it is.
Well, I can make a few stabs at it. I mean, God, I hope my friends aren't thinking it right now, but I think one of the things is film is a collaborative sport. It's a
Yes,
collaborative
for sure.
activity, yeah, that requires
Yes.
a lot of planning, a lot of thought, and still, when you put it all together, you don't know what it's really going to turn out to be.
It's true.
And food is the same way. It's a team sport.
For
Um,
sure.
very
Yeah.
creative. And you whip it all together, but you don't know what it's really.
Right.
Yeah.
You're creating something visceral, I guess. With film, it's something you could see, and food, it's food as you eat first with your eyes as well. So
Yeah. Oh wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. There's that
yeah,
presentation.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you watch any Vietnamese films?
I have not. I might have seen one or two in my time, but no. I mean, I watched more Western films, but I heard just through friends that I guess the Vietnamese film scene is starting to get better. So maybe I should.
Yeah, it's at a different level. Yeah, every year it gets more intense, and every year it gets just
Right.
much more. The level
Right.
rises, and I mean, of
Right.
course, inevitably, but they're just
Yeah.
rocking out in Vietnam.
That's good. I mean, I need to watch some more. Like the movie. I mean, I invested. How I Met You is from the film deal
Yes, I got
from
it.
several years ago. Yeah. So I'm interested. Yeah.
Yeah, now it all makes sense. You know,
Right.
it all now it that about you. When Michael, our other producer, that came on to tell us about you in Washington, I didn't know that you were filling up your credits with film classes.
I was. Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
or being
Right.
part of your love for the food. And that's the thing about doing these podcasts. It's like we are so much more connected than we actually know.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Humans, we're so much more connected than we
For sure.
realize.
For sure. I mean, we're just normal people. You know, the TV show is super edited. I mean, the storyteller, the showrunner did a good job, but of course, I mean, I was barely on it from the get go. Like I didn't want anything to have to
Yeah,
do
can
with
I
it,
can I ask you about
which
that?
is yeah, yeah.
Why don't we see you in the beginning? I mean,
Um, well, okay. So my brother, first off, he's always got he's got tons of business ideas all the time, and like he has a million ideas a minute. That's just the way he is. And then for like a year or two, so it started with that movie Crazy Rich Asians. When that
mhm,
movie came out,
yeah,
he knows some Hollywood producers, and they reached out to him and started talking about, hey, what do you think about doing a show loosely based off that idea of the Crazy Rich Asians, because the movie was doing so well. And so he kept talking about it for a year or two, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, bro. Like, cool story, whatever. And then from those producers, her name is Katie Wallen, and they eventually got HBO to sign on. So the ball started rolling, and they're like, holy crap, like HBO
shit just
Max.
got real.
Yeah, and or Lionsgate. I'm sorry, Lionsgate came on first, and then HBO Max, and
Well,
then
how did you guys convince, or how did Washington convince you, your parents, and your family to
well,
sign?
he didn't convince me. That's why I never signed on. but
Ah,
but but anyway, so for me, I was always brushing off the idea, and plus, I don't watch a lot of TV anyway. I've never like I'll watch films here and there, like even to this day, like I haven't seen 100% of House of Ho. I told you that earlier. I've seen clips here and there, and I just don't watch. I've never seen a Kardashian show. I've never seen. I just don't watch
yeah,
reality TV. If I do watch TV, it's like sports or like shows that people that I know are good that everyone tells me, like Game of Thrones
right.
or like Peaky Blinders or Warrior. Now Warrior's on HBO. It's a good show. But like those are like shows where like a lot of friends are like, yo, it's a good show. You got to watch it. I'll
Right.
watch it. But reality TV, I don't watch. So of course I'm like, if I don't watch reality TV, why the hell would I want to be on a reality TV show? Plus, the reality is this is my family. I live this shit every day. So why? I mean, I don't want them to film us living. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so I didn't sign on for that reason. He convinced everyone else. Everyone in my family is always supportive of everybody, especially when it comes to business. You know what I mean? So of course, for my parents, it's a no-brainer for
Oh,
them to
really?
yeah, of course they're going to support. And also at the time, my parents, they don't really understand TV. And I'll tell you a funny story about that. But they don't understand TV. They're like, okay, whatever, we'll do it. That was my parents' attitude. My sister and Leslie, you know, they actually watched TV. I think they were interested, like, oh, cool, let's do a show. Why not? So they signed on. For me, I was like, fuck that shit. I don't want to do that shit. I mean, like, why the fuck would I want to have people like videotaping me doing what I do?
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, fast forward, like this was right before the pandemic. I guess November 2019 is when they started filming. And you know, it's like my brother's like, yo, HBO's in town. I'm like, what? Are you serious? Like, it's really, he's like, it's happening. And, you know, and then they start filming. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, it's the real deal. And they got like, you know, 30 crew members. And they got like all these trucks, crew trucks and everything at my brother's house, my parents' house. I'm like, this is like a real production. This is not like some bullshit YouTube video. You know what I mean? This is the real deal. And so it was impressive. And I'm very happy for my brother because, you know, it came
together.
Just for a little idea, and it all came together, and the reception's been pretty good. And then so the reason why I ended up shooting, so they had been shooting from November through February, right? And Chinese New Year's was coming up, and I still hadn't filmed anything. And so my mom kept trying to convince me, like, you have to do at least one scene, like at least do the Chinese New Year's party. You know what I mean? Like you are a family member and we want you at least in some of it. So, and I kept saying no. And she would, you know, call me like daily for like a week or two, almost crying, a lot of times crying. I don't know if it was real crying. Now that I think about it, I think she was acting, but you know, she was saying like, oh, like she's doing the Asian mom guilt trip. Oh, you don't love us. Oh, you're ashamed of us. Yada, yada, yada. My mom, I love you to death. You know what I mean? I'm not ashamed of you. Like, I love you. You know I love you. Mm-hmm. But in her eyes, it's like, you must be ashamed of me. Like, you love me, but you're ashamed of me. I'm like, I'm not ashamed of you. And
why was it important to her to have you on the show? And why was it important to her for her to be on the show?
Well, okay, so she goes, Reagan, you know, she's like, you know, remember we used to shoot home videos back in the day? I'm like, yes, I remember. She's like, it's just like doing that. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not like shooting a home video. I was like, Mom, do you understand? My mom doesn't even know can barely text. So like my mom doesn't use a technology. My dad can get on Facebook. My mom can barely even text. So she's like, you know, it's just like shooting a home video. I'm like, Mom, no, do you understand that, you know, thousands, if not millions of people will see this? She's like, oh, it's just like one or two scenes or whatever. And so, of course, I eventually like, fine, I'll do it. And I was like, but if I'm going to do it, first off, I want to choose what to do. So it was my idea to do the duck hunting scene. So like, if I'm going to do it, then I want to go duck hunting with Dad because it's something we love to do. Right. And I don't mind showing that. So that was my first idea. And then after that, you know, the follow-up scenes, of course, we had to tie in the duck hunting stuff. Yeah. But the funny thing is I didn't know any of the storylines. And I literally thought, I mean, I don't know how TV shows work. And so I thought we were just gonna go duck hunting. Like, you know how you see like a duck hunting show? I thought we were just gonna go duck hunting. I'm like, cool, let's go duck hunting. And then we get there and they're asking me all these fucking questions and I'm like, about my relationships and talking about Judy's divorce. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I don't understand what's going on.
Did they give you a brief before?
No.
And were you on camera when they were asking the questions?
Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever even heard any of that stuff. Like, that's real. I'm like, what is going on here? I was like, I thought you guys were just filming us duck hunting. And then so they start asking me questions. And of course, the showrunner is asking me questions. And I'm like, what the freak is going on? And then so that was that. And then
but had nobody been informed of your position, how you felt about any of the shit?
No. And I didn't even know that's what the story was. Like I had dinner and drinks with the showrunner like once or twice, and just to get more background story of my family, just because, you know, he's like, my job is to kind of create a story, or not create, but pull out the story that's there. And so I would tell him a little bit of background, but for the most part, I had no idea. And then so for me, it was just like, yo, we're filming tomorrow. You want to go duck hunting? My brother's like, you want to go duck hunting, right? I'm like, yeah, let's go duck hunting. So, all right. He's like, cool. The camera crew's going to come with us. I'm like, okay, cool. That was it. And then, and then they started bombarding me with questions. So,
Holy shit.
but yeah, so that was the first time I was on camera, was the duck hunt. And I was really shocked. I was like, what is going on? And I was like, I thought we were just hunting, man. Like, what is going on?
And then why would you, okay, so that goes down, that day goes down, and then you have to do a few more, right? And then
yeah, because
make sense of it all.
I mean, I was just like, okay, I understand you want to talk about my relationships or whatever, or lack thereof. And then, you know, the next thing is afterward, we go eat with my family. And I didn't know that Judy's divorce was a storyline either.
Wow.
Because I know my sister's very private, is a very private person. So I didn't know if she wanted that stuff out there. And I wasn't, during filming, you have to understand that they're filming like 12 hours a day. So like, I'm not talking to them, because I can't show up at any of their houses. Normally I can just drop in at any of their houses whenever I want, which is what we normally do. I mean, it's just like that. But of course now I'm not going to any of their houses because there's camera crews everywhere. And I didn't want to sign the documents. Hold on, let me check my charger's in, but it's not charging. I need a different cord.
No problem.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem. Here we
go. Yeah, so then after the hunting, it was you know, the dinner, the whatever dinner scene. And yeah, I didn't know that they were so into my sister's relationship and divorce and that thing. And but yeah, and as they're talking, again, it goes back to that communication for me, I think, with my father and my family. It's you know, my dad's at that point saying he's just worried about the grandkids' happiness. And of course I'm like, what about the elephant in the room? What about your daughter's happiness? Which to his mind, you know, his reply, I haven't even seen that scene. I just remember what happened. He said, oh, but Judy has a choice, which is really stands out to me. So he's like, oh, well, Judy has a choice. The grandkids don't, as far as happiness. I'm like, well, I think what he's getting at, it's almost like the choice is stay with him, like shut up and stay with him, I think is the choice, which I don't think is a very fair choice. You know what I mean? Like you need to stay unhappy and be with him for the grandkids' sake. But for me, I'm like, that's not really a choice. Like in your mind, that's a choice, but in her mind, obviously it's no longer a choice. She's already tried that. And obviously it's not working. So that's why I felt like I had to say something.
Yeah. God, yeah. It goes back to the values of, you know, the old country versus, you know, what we hear. They can't walk a day in Judy's shoes with what went on in that marriage. They can't fathom whatever kind of broken shit is happening in that life. There's no way.
Right. And even my sister, for me, towards the end, it was kind of a shock because my sister's very private, even with the family. You know, she's not a complainer. My sister's not a complainer. She will more hold it in. And so she didn't even let us know that from Washington, let's forget my parents, but for Washington and I, she almost didn't even let us know how bad it was until it was pretty much almost over. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was like, holy shit. Like, even I was like, holy shit, I thought you guys were good. Like, why didn't you ever tell me that you were fighting so often? Or why didn't you ever tell me, you know, you didn't see him that often anymore? He was out and about or whatever. She's like, well, I mean, you guys are doing your own thing. I don't want to bother you guys. And that's the way my sister is. You know what I mean? So
I think one thing, like Vietnamese parents of that generation, they don't realize like that not only are they dealing with the internal pressures of their kids' own marriage, but they're also dealing with the trying to mitigate what our parents think of our own relationship. And so the idea or the thought of like walking away from your marriage, that's a big deal. And then you got to deal with like what you think that they're going to the parents are thinking of you.
Right.
It's like a
Right.
double whammy. And then parents don't think,
Of course.
Vietnamese parents
And
don't think about it.
and then you have to put, for in her case, like put her feelings aside to try to please her dad,
Yeah.
right? In that circumstance, but in reality, that should be about her doing what's good for her first. But of course, with the way we're raised, and maybe just our generation, our parents, they project their feelings onto us, and they project their hopes and wishes, and sometimes live vicariously through us. And if we don't succeed, not only are we letting ourselves down, which is already hard enough, we're letting down the whole family, which makes it a double whammy, like you said.
This is
So
what this is what I tell everybody who asks me if I've watched the show. This is what I say. I say, I don't care what you think you know about reality TV or what you think you know about the Kardashians. This is our people. This is a moment in our history. You need to watch it. And then if you want to talk shit, come to me and we can discuss. We can
yeah,
have a full fucking conversation. But watch it.
right,
Don't put your foot in your mouth thinking you know what this is about. Watch
right,
it,
right,
and then we can have a discussion, and we can have a proper discussion and talk
right,
about what you think about things. And I think that's the important thing. That's why I wanted to talk to you today, because it's important
right.
that we get to, there's a human side to all this, you know?
For sure. The crazy rich stuff, that's a little bit of window dressing by Hollywood
Yeah.
to get you to come in. But the story is real. Like I get people messaging me all day long, like, did you guys have a script? Was this scripted or yada? I was like, there was no script. First off, we're not actors. If there was a script, like how the hell would we keep, we're not actors. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if I was an actor, I'd fire my agent right now for doing this. But we're just not. It's just we are who we are. And the storyteller, the showrunner, his name is Nick Lee. Even though he has an Asian last name, he's actually not Asian. He's Caucasian. He's from California. I mean, he really got to know all of us. He was almost like a family therapist, to be honest. We've never done family therapy ever as a family. I've done it on my own, and I think my brother and sister have done it on their own or with their spouses, but this was almost as what it felt like. You know what I mean? And so he was able to find, the important stories, I think, and really tell it true to what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, you
I mean,
sound like you're converted to kind of like the idea of the show being a thing in your life now.
yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's been kind of crazy just hearing the fan feedback. For the most part, it's been really good. There's nothing been super negative, to be honest. And the ones, you do hear negative comments here and there, but I don't really care, to be honest. The show is out there. It is what it is. It's a true representation of my family. And but yeah, I hear 99% positive comments, 1% negative. So, and that goes for my sister and Leslie in Washington. It's all the same experience. So it's been a good experience. It's surreal.
I don't want to
It's
give
very
away
surreal.
the punchline for me. It happens obviously towards the end of the season, but I cried, when that happened. I teared up
Wow.
and it hit me. It was like I was like,
Which part? Which part?
it's the part where your dad shows up,
Ah,
and fuck, man, that just
right.
gripped me. It just, God, I didn't want to spoil it for other people, but when
Yeah.
he showed up, I was just like, took a lot of and it could
Right.
have been scripted, who knows? But at the end of the day, it just portrays that it portrays the side of our culture. I mean, every old school culture from the old country has this sort of like the old man who's like set in his ways, and then
Yeah.
the the tears of joy for me, it bursts when he shows up at the place, and I was just like, okay, fuck, this is redeeming, and this is why people should watch the show, because
Yeah.
there are ideas that challenges the older generation's views of you can't control your children. You shouldn't control
Right.
anybody.
Right. The more you try to control, the more they're going to push you off, to be
Yeah,
honest,
yeah,
because you can't, at the end of the day, you can only control yourself. But yeah, that's what he did, and everything he did. Everything we did, it's 100% real. You know what I mean?
yeah. And there's a truth to um our culture of not, that generation of not, okay, so we younger American, Vietnamese American, we have a language of okay, therapy. We have a language of psychology, language that we can communicate with each other, and there's shorthand. There's shorthand for communication and ways to resolve problems. At that generation, they're not exposed to it.
No,
And then
you have to find a way to say it in a different way.
yeah,
Either say it or just understand that, for me, like, my parents raised me the way they were raised.
yeah,
They were raised me the way they were taught, so I don't hold anything against them. For me, I just understand they're just a human being just like myself, and so I hold nothing against them. Maybe when I was younger, I did in certain ways, but now that I understand, more about myself, more about human nature, they're only doing what they know. So, yeah.
I want to ask you a personal question, and you can decline to answer this or not. And I'm not
Yeah,
trying to ambush you, but do you want to be married one day? Do you want
for
to have?
sure.
Oh, okay.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I've been in, I almost yeah, we talked about marriage, my most recent relationship. I've been single for about 2.5 years now. But that relationship I was in for like 3 years. And we ended up living together. So
Oh wow.
it was serious. Yeah. But in the end, it didn't work out. Um, just for whatever reasons, we actually ended up opening a business together, her
Oh
and I.
wow.
And I think the work stress, the person we already had some personal stresses in our personal relationship, and the work stress kind of put it over the edge as well, because then the work stress comes home, or the home stress goes to work. And so in the end, it didn't work out, but I'm very glad that I was in that relationship. I mean, I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot about myself, and we're still on speaking terms. We're still business partners, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
This is this is, I hate it when people used to ask me this question, but you can decline it. But
yeah,
would you rather do you look for a cultural sort of connection with somebody that you in the future, like a Vietnamese person, or do you have any kind of like thoughts of who?
I date all races. The girl we were talking about was Vietnamese. My other two long-term relationships before that were Vietnamese.
Oh, great.
But yeah, but having said that, I mean,
You're
I've
open.
dated, I've dated all races.
Yeah.
Um, and I used to think it was more important to date a Vietnamese girl, probably because that's what was ingrained into my head by my parents. But now, after dating a lot of different people, I think it's more important to connect with the person. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter what race it is. You need to have a strong connection and an open communication, which I think is more important than thinking she must be Vietnamese, or the
I agree.
cultures have to coincide, because culture, actually, it's fun to learn other cultures. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I think the personal communication and openness is more important.
I used to be a big country music fan, back in the day with
I like country music.
yeah, from Texas, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I went to Garth Brooks concerts and George
In
Strait
California.
in California, San Diego. Yeah, when I was a
Yeah.
Marine. And so recently there's a Garth Brooks documentary on Netflix. There's a three-part episodic. It's a reality show based on his early retirement and coming out of retirement. I think the recurring theme that Garth Brooks talks about is the idea of everything that's a blessing is a curse, and everything that's a curse is a potential blessing. It's the same thing with marrying a Vietnamese, right? Or
Yeah.
marrying somebody outside. Because, for example, I'm married to a Taiwanese woman, and one of the blessings is that she doesn't speak Vietnamese, you know? And so we live with my mom, and so there's never any fights. There's never any reason to.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's funny. It's like there's no reason for them to ever fight because it doesn't ever get to that level, right? They can
Yeah,
read each
yeah.
other's body language and and get over it. But at the same time, there's like this lack of full on understanding
Yeah.
between the mother-in-law and the
Yeah.
daughter-in-law. But
And
Garth
yeah,
Brooks is always talking about that,
interesting.
blessing, curse. I love that thing about his show. So I'm leading into the next thing is the idea of happiness. So because somebody like you, you're blessed with a lot of things.
Right.
That blessing also sometimes brings a curse to it, which is sometimes an emptiness, or you have everything. There's no, like, what are you working for? What how do you define your happiness at this point in your life? You're a fairly young man, and how do you find
Yeah.
the
It's
meaning
tough.
of
Like,
every morning? And
yeah. I mean, again, parts of the happiness, like, of course, when I was younger, you think, oh, it's money, success will bring you happiness. Because that's also, my family is kind of very entrepreneurial, and my dad's all about the money. And so, of course, you think, I used to think that was the end all be all, of course. It helps. But at the end of the day, as I get older, I think I realize your relationships, whether it's with your wife or your siblings, your parents, and your friends, are very important to happiness. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You could have all the money in the world, but if you're sitting by yourself with it, you're going to be fucking lonely and not happy. At the same time, if you have no money but a lot of great relationships, can find happiness from that as well.
there's an actual study on that. We'll get into that in a little bit about
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who live long. It's always found that they have the most relationships, the deepest relationships.
I could see that. I could definitely see that, especially that's very, very, that point is very obvious now that the pandemic has come around. So 2020, where people are quarantining at home, like I'm here at my house here, especially in the beginning of the quarantine when I was very strict on it, it got very lonely. Even though we're Zooming and talking to my parents on the phone, of course, I don't want to expose them, and they only live like 3 miles away, but I don't see them as much as I used to when I can just drop in anytime I want.
Yeah,
That really makes it obvious that the interpersonal relationships are
everything.
very important, very important. More to the point where, I started getting lax on it. Like you asked earlier in Texas, how are they dealing with the pandemic? Like people are out and about. I think because people got very fatigued of staying at home alone and just watching TV and talking to people on Zoom. And it's a very fine balance between, staying home to protect, for the greater good, but at the same time suffering because you're lonely or bored or you haven't seen your friends in a long time. So that made it very obvious, like your interpersonal relationships are very important in my opinion for happiness.
So yeah, so the grind of the typical workman or woman in the world today probably brings satisfaction to people who are climbing and on the journey to making a name for themselves, whether it's financially or.
Right.
But for you, it's different. It's a different ball game.
Well, I mean, I love business as well. And of course, when a business idea or something does well, that does bring a little bit of happiness for sure. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Or coming up with a business idea and it being successful. Like for instance, my brother in this TV show, of course, he's been very happy with the show. But at the end of the day, I think I see him with his kids. That makes him more happy at the end of the day, just taking his kids to go fishing or taking his wife out to dinner. It seems like he has more fun doing that, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So,
I can speak to that. There's no other feeling than to hang with your children and your wife and
right.
do the hard, it's a hard thing to do, but
Yeah. I don't know it yet, but like you asked, of course, I do want to settle down, have kids, all of it. So, yeah. But right now, I'm just a fun uncle. I get to go over there, play with like my 5 nieces and nephews, then go home and chill. So, but
so there's 5 of them and there's 2 of you and there's president names that are
yeah, Judy has 3 kids. Washington has 2 kids. Judy's son, Truman, is my godson. And yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it's kind of like me getting practiced, I guess, to be a father, because I do get to take him out here and there to go practice golf or to a soccer game for his soccer games and hang out with him. So it's been fun. And yes, there's the weird presidential.
Yeah, so how does that affect your life, their lives? I mean, psychologically, like how is it to go into the world with president names?
I thought it was cool growing up. I mean, it's kind of unforgettable, I think.
Yeah.
Especially the presidential name with the Asian last name, which is weird, right? Like Reagan Ho and Washington Ho.
Yeah.
I always thought it was cool, but in a way, yeah, it's kind of my dad's, the way he named us kind of ingrains a little bit more pressure. Like he says, well, why you could be a president? I named you after a president, so you could be the president of the country one day, which is what he would always say. But of course, that pressure does live in your mind. Yeah. So it can be a little stressful, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's what I know. So I don't know anything different. And I never thought I should change my name or go by my middle name or anything. So
Do you ever look into the political bend, of
of
each
course,
presidents? Yeah.
Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I love Ronald Reagan. I mean, yeah, he's a Republican, and for the most part, everyone in my family leans Republican. I'm kind of in the middle. So, but yeah, I mean, I've looked into it.
And what about the younger kids, the Truman, and what's the other names?
Judy's oldest daughter is Kennedy, and then Truman's her middle son, and then the youngest girl is McKinley. And then Washington's oldest son is Roosevelt, and then his daughter is Lincoln.
So who named the grandkids?
Washington and Judy did.
So nothing to do with your dad didn't
No,
do that.
no, that was
Cool.
their doing. That was
Very
their
cool.
doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously they like it, so they continued the tradition. And people always ask me, would I continue? And I don't know. I don't think I would, to be honest.
Why?
Just I don't know. I feel like it's just there's enough presidents in the family.
Yeah.
But then again, you would have to ask me when I actually have a kid. But just me thinking now, I don't know. I don't think so.
All right, I gotta ask, like, okay, which president, if you were gonna do it?
I haven't even thought of it, to be honest with you, because in my mind, I always thought, I mean, you can ask my brother and sister. I always say I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't name my kid after a president. That's what I always say. So,
But are you saying that because there's enough in the family and you don't want to be like that, or do you think that there's more reason to not do it? For
I
example,
think it's both. I think it's both. The whole presidential thing, all the stresses that come with it, thinking I'm named after a president, especially when there's already 5 other cousins named after presidents. I think I don't know. Might just name him John. That's after a president, isn't it? But it's also common. I don't know.
How has the show changed your life?
Um, I mean, not a lot yet. Of course, a lot of people, more people know me, or random people message me all day long and want to get to know me or want to get ask me questions, or and it's really put my family out there. Let's put it that way, in the universe. So it's very weird. It's surreal. It's surreal to me. It's just weird. Even sometimes, like the other day, New Year's Eve, I went to a restaurant for dinner with a date, and I had like five, random people come up to me just congratulating me or just asking, "Are you the guy from the show?" It's pretty weird. It's not in a bad way. It's just surreal to me,
Yeah.
and it's a trip. It's a trip. I mean, it's kind of funny. I think it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, humans aren't made to have that kind of recognition, right? If you think about it,
Yeah. And
right?
plus, we're just a family from Houston. We're not like uh, publicity hungry family from Hollywood.
Right.
You know what I mean? So especially me, because I didn't sign on originally anyway, and I wanted to stay away from it. So it's really a big trip to me. But I do get a lot of messages. Certain, I guess, type of people like certain characters on the show. The ones that I guess are drawn to me, like I get a lot of positive messages from people. For me speaking my mind. For the majority, it's from people who live in a similar type of family, who were either afraid or just would never speak up to their parents in that way. So a lot of people, those types of people, message me and the show. Some just want my phone number for a date. So it's I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
It's been fun. It's been fun.
How has it changed your family dynamics, and how has it changed your mom and dad, if it has?
It hasn't changed them that much because they're not on the internet. Like
Mm,
my dad just started a Facebook, and so they've said they've heard like rumblings here and there from their friends and from Vietnamese like media, but for the most part, they're happy with it. I think they were a little upset during the birthday, during the finale when Nate asked for the marriage. They were kind of for Judy's hand in marriage. They were kind of surprised by that. Um, but I think they're over it, and now that they see Nate really is a good guy, and Judy and Nate, they now live together,
yeah.
and they're really good together. So I think in the end they're happy with it. I mean, and also they don't pay it any mind, to be honest.
Right, right. He's probably got bigger fish to fry out there.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they're not on
social
social
media.
media.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't really.
That the one that I shared with you what made me cry, but the one part of that show that made me proud as fuck was the New Year's scene. Just the
Yeah,
whole celebration. It was
yeah, it
very
was
heartwarming to
awesome.
see that shit on American TV.
It was cool, right?
Yeah, that's a moment, man. That's like I don't care what anybody says, and I'm glad it's a lot of this stuff is very positive because I read the comments on the different threads, very positive, but that's
Yeah,
a major moment for us.
yeah. It makes us happy to hear what you just said. Like, we hear that a lot. It actually makes us very proud as well for, putting that on HBO Max and for the
Think
world to see.
think about this. I just had this thought. Fucking what have we been known for? That it's the fucking Tet Offensive of 1968. That's when the I don't
Right,
even want to describe it. That's how badly I don't want to get into
right,
that's section of our history. And
right.
then we get to
I thought you were gonna say gambling.
that's a good thing, man. Vietnamese people, it's not a good thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I love um I'll take that back. But yeah, we're constantly thinking in our head the word that in American English has been
Right,
very well associated with bloodshed of that
right.
one specific event. And
Right.
now we get to at least see how festive it is, how much meaning it has. And I
Right.
know that for Vietnamese American children of our generation, of our, we don't even get to experience how beautiful that is the way it's done in the motherland and, in Vietnam.
Right. Well,
We
I've been there. Well, the thing is, everyone goes home for that. Like the
Right.
city's dead. The city,
Yeah, the
or the
city's
big
dead.
cities are dead. Just everybody goes home. So I've been there for that, and it's just a celebration with your immediate family.
Family, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
warm time and it's
Yeah.
an amazing time. And then for your show to be able to portray that in a totally different light. I didn't cry like when your father showed up at the at the club, but it hit me in a different way. It was a moment where it felt like I got to breathe out and exhale and
Yeah.
embrace that beautiful part of my culture, And it's a shared experience because we're millions of
It's
people
awesome.
watching it. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, even when we were shooting it, I mean, I didn't think of it that deeply, but when you describe it that way, I understand, because for us, of course, every year we grow up with that. We do that every year. Of course, we don't do it that big. We don't do
Of
that
course.
big of a celebration every year. But yeah, I guess now that you say it, it's kind of cool that we kind of show the world, you know, how we celebrate it.
Yeah.
It
I
is pretty
hope
cool.
that there will be a second season, and I hope that there will be more treats that we get to see, warts and all.
Yeah,
Bad shit, good shit. I just want to wish I want to see more, and I hope that the show does extend for a few seasons. I mean, I'm living in gratitude right now that we even got one season.
right. So are we. And it did, just speaking with our producers, executive producers, it's done better than expected. And
Great.
actually, we're already about almost, the pandemic kind of screwed things up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but actually, in the same way, I actually think it kind of helps because a lot of people are at home, like looking for things to watch. So who knows? I mean, there is no guarantee for season 2 yet. So a lot of people
Right.
that message us and ask about that, I just say, if you like the show, share it with your friends and family, and maybe we will get a season 2. And then, of course, they always ask, well, are you going to be more a part of it? Asking me specifically. And of course, I mean, if we get a season 2, I would have more screen time, most likely.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm excited for you know, everything that your family has done and will be doing in the future, whether there's a season 2 or not. I mean, it's just
Right.
it's a blessing for our community regardless. Again, warts and all. I know there's a little like criticism about reality TV shows, but fuck it. It's,
Right.
when do we ever get to be put up there? And
Right.
somebody
Well, somebody, some Vietnamese family had to be the first, and
yeah,
hopefully there's many more. Um, Obviously, there's millions of Vietnamese families in America and all over the world, for that matter. Like, this show is huge in Australia, which is a trip to us because it's not showing in every country, but one of the countries that they chose to show it is Australia, and Australia has a big Vietnamese population. So we get thousands of fans from Australia messaging us all day long, which is a trip. Like, people on the other side of the world are watching videos of us from here in Houston. So it's been a good reception for the most part. And yeah, it's a trip.